welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at some pretty interesting new research. It's coming out of the University of Florida.
Right, published just recently, April 11th, in the Journal of Dairy Science.
Exactly. And it's all about a new way, potentially, to cut methane from dairy cows. They're using a feed supplement, flaxseed, and pea protein.
Sounds simple, but the potential impact is quite significant.
So our mission today is basically to unpack how this supplement might work. What are the upsides for the environment, for milk production too, and what happens next?
Yeah, what's the roadmap? Because ultimately, you, the listener, should get a sense of this cutting-edge stuff that's trying to solve two problems at once.
Environmental concerns and, well, food production efficiency.
Exactly. Two huge global challenges.
Okay, let's start with the problem. Dairy cows, methane. We know they burp.
Right.
And that releases methane.
A lot of methane. And it's a potent greenhouse gas, much more so than CO2 in the short term.
But here's the bit people might miss, that methane is actually wasted energy for the cow itself.
Precisely. Think of it like energy leaking out that could theoretically be used for something else, like making milk.
So the researchers, Antonio Fasciola at University of Florida was leading this, and James Vineyard from University of Alaska contributed. They looked at this flaxseed and pea protein mix.
Right. They wondered, could this specific feed change the cow's digestion? Change it enough to produce less methane?
Okay, interesting idea.
Yeah.
But how do you test that? You can't exactly measure burps easily in a field, can you?
Well, not initially. So they started in the lab. They used a technique called in vitro ruminal fermentation.
In vitro. So like in glass, an artificial cow stomach.
Pretty much, yeah. They take actual rumen fluid from cows, that's from the first stomach chamber where all the microbial action happens, and basically recreate that environment in the lab.
Okay.
Then they added this flaxseed and pea protein supplement to the mix.
And watch what happened. Measured the gases.
Exactly. They measured methane production very carefully and also looked at overall digestion efficiency, how well the feed was being broken down.
Right. So what did this lab stomach tell them?
Well, the results were promising. The supplement did reduce the amount of methane produced in this lab setting.
Okay, that's the big one.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is it seemed to improve overall digestion, too. The thinking is the components, omega-3 fatty acids from the flaxseed, the proteins from the peas, they might shift the types of microbes in the rumen.
Shift them towards ones that make less methane, maybe. Yeah. And help absorb nutrients better.
That seems to be the hypothesis, yes. More efficient breakdown, less wasteful gas production.
That really does sound like a win-win scenario. I think Fasciola had a quote about this.
He did. He said, every time we reduce methane, we keep that energy in the cow's body.
That puts it perfectly. Less energy wasted is burps.
Means potentially more energy available for making milk. So good for the environment, potentially good for the farmer's bottom line.
So, okay, lab results look good. But a lab isn't a cow. What's next?
That's the crucial step. Live animal trials. They need to actually feed the supplement to real dairy cows, on farms.
Right. See if it works under real-world conditions.
Exactly. See if the methane reduction holds up, see if milk production actually increases or becomes more efficient. There are so many variables on a farm. Different breeds, diets, health.
Yeah, way more complex than a beaker in a lab. Makes sense. So, assuming these live trials pan out, what can this mean? Sort of bigger picture.
Globally, it could be quite significant. We keep talking about food security, feeding a growing population.
Right. We need more food, often from the same or even fewer resources.
Antonio Fasciola touched on this too. He said, we will need to have cows producing more milk with the same amount of food. We have to be more efficient to feed more people.
And this supplement seems to hit right at that point, less environmental impact, potentially more efficient production.
Precisely. It aligns perfectly with that need for sustainable intensification in agriculture.
It's also worth noting, wasn't this partly funded by an industry partner? O&T Farms.
Yes, a Canadian company that makes animal supplements. It shows that industry is also looking at these solutions.
Which is important, right? Getting these things from the lab to the farm often needs that kind of collaboration.
Absolutely vital. Research is one thing, implementation is another.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. The takeaway here seems to be that this flaxseed and pea protein supplement, based on initial lab work, shows real promise.
Definitely. Promise for cutting methane from dairy cows, which is a big environmental plus, and maybe, just maybe, boosting milk production efficiency at the same time.
It's a potential step towards more sustainable farming.
For sure. And it leaves you with something to think about, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, think about the wider implications. If we can find these smart, nature-based tweaks, these efficiencies in biological processes like digestion, what other unexpected benefits might pop up? How else can we balance feeding the world with protecting the planet?
Focusing on efficiency in nature itself, that's a fascinating thought to leave folks with.